You said that the most important thing that you want to impress upon folks within ICE is pride.
Right.
But I want to ask you about accountability and trust, because I do think that those things go hand in hand. You've said you want to rebuild public trust in ICE. What does that mean? Fewer use of force incidents, judicial warrants for homes, more body cameras. How do you get there?
Actually, I don't think I've ever used the term public trust. I want to, first of all, restore pride in the ICE agents. The ICE agents are out there every day enforcing laws that Congress passed. I can't stand it when I have my Democrat colleagues go out there and say they're unconstitutional. They're outside the realm of the Constitution. I'm like, no, they're not. They're enforcing the laws that constitutionally set you up the ability to make those laws. We're enforcing the laws that you pass. If you want to change the laws that we're enforcing, we as in ICE, then change it. But to go out there and accuse ICE agents of doing unconstitutional things is a flat-out lie. And eventually it gets to the individual. And the American people start believing that too. So when I start talking to the ICE agents that are out there, it's, hey, take pride in your job. Forget about the political theater that the Democrats are doing, but we are going to take an approach that we're going to enforce law. We're not getting soft on enforcing laws. What we're going to do is maybe take a different approach that can be more effective and less public-facing.
And speaking of ICE's role, I think a lot of Americans who might not know that ICE has long had a presence at the Super Bowl and at large security events, they might be a little worried to hear that ICE will be at the World Cup. For an American who is worried that ICE's purpose at the World Cup is to arrest non-citizens, can you offer an assurance that they're there to secure that event?
Well, it's different. ICE is Immigration Custom Enforcement. So what do you find at a tremendous amount of sporting events? Counterfeit products, counterfeit tickets. You have counterfeit clothing being sold on the streets. You have handlers being at every corner. We see it all the time. 18 months ago, most Americans didn't even know ICE existed. It's because media and the public has made them a villain somehow. I say the public has made the Democrats have made them some type of villain, yet they've always been there. So you just took them for granted. So when they're at these sporting events, we're not out there doing immigration enforcement, but we are looking for, maybe we have people that shouldn't be in this country because they're on a terrorist watch list. We arrest people on the terrorist watch list every single week. Every day I get a report of the worst of the worst. These are sex traffickers. These are drug traffickers. These are individuals that are wanted for murder in other parts of the country that we have papers on from Interpol to be able to arrest. And at these sporting events, a lot of times you find these individuals, and but they're there to enforce law. We're not there that we're going to be enforcing mass immigration, but we're there to enforce the law. So
Mr.
if we find a felon or we find someone doing customs,
if you find a criminal, you will arrest them. But the mission at the World Cup is not immigration enforcement.
We're not there. Well, ICE always says immigration enforcement. We're always going to do that. But we're not there for solely that purpose. We're in there to do our job. Immigration, custom enforcement.
But immigration enforcement at the World Cup is not off the table because that is the mission of ICE.
As I said, we're not there to go round up mass individuals, but we are always looking for the worst of the worst. We're going to continue to do that. But the ICE's footprint is much bigger than that. As I said, it's immigration, custom enforcement.
CBS has reported that David Venturella will be the next acting ICE director.
Right.
I'm curious if you plan, if you expect him to be Senate confirmed or more of a temporary leader, and also what his first order of business will be.
So David and I have had long conversations. We're still actively looking for a permanent position for the director. I think I have to go back and double check this, but I think I'm pretty accurate on this. The last time that Senate confirmed ICE director was like 2015, 2016.
President Obama, I think, even before
and
that,
we want to put somebody there that's permanent. David is great. David's going to be a good placeholder, but he'll be our deputy once we find someone to take the director's position.
What's the timeline on Alligator Alcatraz, and why shut it down? Is it too expensive? Was this the plan all along?
Well, I don't I don't think we've said we're shutting it down.
Oh,
that's not,
okay.
That's not been an announcement we've made. But we do understand there's vulnerabilities there. It's a soft-sided facility. Right now, we have fires that are within 20 miles of it. We all know that Florida is pretty susceptible to hurricanes. So I could see where, we may run into a place where we may have to, but we have not made any announcement we're shutting.
So just to offer
Alcatraz down.
clarity, there are no near-term plans to close Alligator Alcatraz.
We have plans in case of a natural emergency, such as a wildfire or a hurricane, to have to be able to bring it down and pull the individuals out. But there's need for us to be able to flex when we have a big influx of illegals. So
a surge capacity.
There is such a surge capacity that would be needed. However, we do also understand it's soft-sided, and if something arises, we have to pull people out. We do have contingency plans for that.
And Mr. Secretary, you were long on the Senate Armed Services Committee, so I know you'll appreciate this question, but lawmakers there say that DHS owes about $2 billion in unpaid border bills, and that it's now an Army readiness problem. Now, I know we just got out of a very long shutdown, so right. I do want to give you an opportunity to kind of explain to us when you expect the Department of Homeland Security will pay DOW back and why that has become a challenge.
Well, Secretary Hegseth has been wonderful to work with, and I consider him a close friend. We were friends through his confirmation, still remain friends. We're working on all this. I came out of a 76-day shutdown, the longest in American history, but it's my fourth one in 12 months. So because of the Democrats shutting us down for political theater, we owe money to the State Department, we owe money to DOW, we owe money to Interior, because they were keeping us afloat. Listen, the American people still want the Homeland safe, and yet the Democrats wanted to play games with us and not fund us. But the men and women that worked in DHS that I had the greatest privilege to be able to run, they still want to do their mission every single day. Thank goodness for President Trump's leadership and his ability to communicate and get us in a room and say, how can we have agencies that have, because the State Department reaches and touches every other secretary out there. And so we have cross components that we work through. And so every one of those areas we really worked well with trying to make sure the mission didn't get dropped. And so we're going to, as the money comes in, we're writing the checks and send them out the door.
Okay, and speaking of reconciliation, you have been advocating for ICE and CBP to be fully funded for the next 3 years. Right. I guess, just to play devil's advocate, Mr. Secretary, what leverage will Congress have left if agencies fall short, say on use of force or training, detention conditions, or transparency, if ICE and CBP are funded for the next 3 years? Where's the accountability?
Let me answer that question, but let me go back to the DOW question real quick.
Sure, please.
So I want to keep in mind, not Secret Service, but the United States Coast Guard works closely with DOW every day. We see these illegal freighters that are on the water. Every time they go and they take one, the Coast Guard they're the law enforcement of the water. They have to be there. When we take these narco boats out, Coast Guard is involved in it. Yeah. It's unfortunate that the Democrats put us in a situation, but our gas card, literally, for the Coast Guard got shut off. We hadn't paid our gas bill or our electricity bill or the fuel bill since February. So DOW was helping the Coast Guard stand up. So just understand that that's where a lot of that money went to. Going back to your question, and repeat your question again.
Just about accountability, right? Like, so if you fund CBP and ICE for the next 3 years.
We didn't ask for this to happen. We would love for CBP, Custom Border Protection, and ICE to be through regular order. We'd like that to happen. The Democrats are the ones playing games with this. A Democrat leader in the House, I won't mention his name, but everybody will know who he is, flat out told me that, hey, we can't do this. As Tom Homeland and I were negotiating for 5 weeks with the Democrats, they asked for 3 things. We'd run it all out to 9 things that we were willing to give them to allow us to be able to pass this with our other 20 components through regular appropriations.
What were you willing to give?
Well, I'm not going to get into that now because it's a mute deal. But the fact is that they finally told us we can't get there. And do you know why they couldn't get there? Why I was told this? They said because it will kill our current members in their re-elect during the primary. We just can't, literally said, we can't make them take that vote, no matter what you do, because they've demonized Custom and Border Protection and ICE so much. Because they have basically said they're for the felons running on the streets, and they want the open borders. Because if you don't funding Custom and Border Protection, that means you're open borders, and you're not wanting to arrest the criminals inside your cities, that means you're for the criminals. There's no argument on that. So there was no way for them to get to,
Mr. Secretary?
but there was no way for us to get to yes.
Yeah.
So our only option is people, the American people, this is an 80% issue with the American people, not the Democrat radical left, but the average American person out there, 80% issue. They want a secure border. They want the criminals off the street. And if the Democrats aren't going to allow us to fund it through regular order, then we're going through reconciliation.
Yeah.
And even if we funded them again, which we try to do, you have Representative Thompson out there, that's part of leadership, out there saying that he's willing to shut us down again September 30th.
What would that do to the Department of Homeland Security if you were to shut down again on September 30th?
The American people saw the Department of Homeland is still going to deliver on mission, but it's going to continue to hurt the morale and put the American people at risk, because at some point you have to quit being proactive. Towards the end of the shutdown, we quit having the ability to be proactive.
The Department of Homeland Security could no longer be proactive.
Not as proactive as we wanted to. We just have to choose missions. Because listen, our adversaries didn't shut down. They knew the Department of Homeland, that has the mission to protect the homeland, was vulnerable because we were shut down.
I think that's a shocking statement for a lot of Americans, though, that you would have to choose missions within the Department of Homeland Security.
When we lost over 8% of our workforce, just cybersecurity alone, lost 1,100 people over the last year.
Wow.
That's a third of their workforce. You talk about TSA. TSA lost 8.6% of their workforce. TSA does a lot more than what people realize just at where they see them at the airports. They're responsible for pipelines, inspecting and watching over, not inspection, but security over our pipelines, our infrastructure system. They operate a lot of venues like FIFA. They're going to have 11 venues that they're going to be providing security for at these games. They do a whole lot more than just airport security. And we lost 8.6% of that workforce. At some point you lose personnel to the point to where you're not necessarily being reactive, but we have thousands of threats that face us every day in this nation.
You shut down again, it's a national security problem.
We have huge national security. We have 22 components. All of them deal with national security. And as that many threats are coming into us, we want to make sure we're not dropping one. But because the Democrats, as the president likes to say, the kamikaze Democrats, they put national security at risk, and they know that.
The DHS Office of the Inspector General is right now probing $38 billion in warehouse detention space within ICE. Are warehouse detention centers still part of your vision for ICE? I know there's been a temporary pause. I'm curious if that's a new policy or if you're just waiting for the investigation to play out.
We're not pausing on getting detention centers, because unfortunately we have states like California, now New York, Washington, Oregon, that's saying that we're not able to use any of the detention facilities in their state. So we have to then purchase our own detention centers, because they can't prevent us from doing it. They're just saying that you're not allowed to use any state facilities. So we don't have a choice but to continue that. We're going to change the focus a little bit. Rather than just looking at warehouses, we're going to look at county jails that may be in default on their USDA grant, or USDA grant, I mean. We're going to be looking at facilities that have been shut down because they were too expensive to operate, because states or counties didn't have the budget to build to do the maintenance that needs to be done on it, where we can bring those, purchase them, bring them up, and immediately have beds available. So we're looking at a faster approach. When construction is my background, and so when you buy a warehouse, and sometimes that's your only option, by the way, but that's not our only option. When you buy a warehouse, you got to get permitting. There's got to be gas and water supply that's equivalent to be able to do that from a warehouse to housing individuals. So the infrastructure is important. The build out itself. So some of these warehouses could take 18 to 24 months to bring online, and in those cases it doesn't fit today's need. We need stuff we can bring online in a matter of months.
And because this is your bread and butter, I want to ask you, what happens to the contracts that have already been signed if the IG finds that DHS ignored zoning or plumbing or water or community concerns?
Well, we can still, I don't know about this investigation you're talking about, by the way.
Okay.
IG hasn't informed me on this one.
Okay.
But anytime there's a situation with zoning or infrastructure, there's always a way to get the zoning you need, and there's always a way to build the infrastructure you need. So just because just because that might be the immediate problem, that doesn't mean that's not a problem that we can't overcome.
A lot of Americans right now watching the coverage of hantavirus and are having PTSD about COVID. Now, these are two different things.
Right.
But the Department of Homeland Security had a very robust response to the COVID pandemic. And I'm wondering, what, if any, planning have you and the department done with regard to hantavirus?
Well, I'm getting updates on this every day. This isn't even kind of the same, and we're not even going to remotely make the mistakes that this nation made during the response from the Biden administration.
This is not COVID.
Yeah, this is not COVID at all. But we are taking it very serious. We have to take stuff like this very serious. But would I say the American people need to be afraid of anything or be concerned? No, absolutely not. We are very active. We're working beside Secretary Kennedy, because it's not just us. The White House is involved in it. But for people to be being afraid that we're going to go into another COVID, not underneath President Trump's leadership, we're not doing that.
I want to ask you, the FEMA review says that states and local governments should take on a bigger disaster role. Hurricane season starts on June 1st. Are governors being told to expect less from FEMA this year, and do they have enough time to do what they need to do to prepare?
We're talking to governors every day, and with the exception of one governor, it's just been a great conversation.
You're having trouble with one governor?
Just one.
Are you going to name names?
Absolutely not.
Oh my
no,
gosh.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
I'm not doing that. But and I think we can work around this one governor. At the end of the day, there's political differences, and I tell people all the time, I didn't get elected to this job to just represent red states, protect just red states' backyards. I'm here to do blue and red. Well, you got to work with me. You have a role and I have a role. If you choose not to work with me, fine. At some point, if I got to expose this governor, I will be happy to expose this governor. But right now, I'm going to give this gentleman the benefit of the doubt, and we're going to work through it. I will tell you, though, every other governor I've talked to has been wonderful to work with. They understand that the state has a responsibility, and the federal government isn't there to take care of all their problems. The states have a role, and we have a role. And our public assistance hasn't slowed down. We're working through that process. The president has been phenomenal working on this. Even in governors that have been very ugly to the president still understands public assistance is needed. But for FEMA to be the fix-all, which is what's happened, was never designed, FEMA was never designed for that. They're designed to be there on their worst day. They're not designed to be the first ones in and the last ones out. The states, once the project stabilizes, the states need to take that and run with it. And they own some responsibility, but too often, especially in blue states, they expected the government to come in here and take over. And no one can do it faster and better than those that live in that backyard. If you think government is here to take care of all your problems, you're sadly mistaken. We're there to help you get started again on your very, very worst day.
But for an American living in a hurricane zone, what would you tell them if they're scared that FEMA's not going to show up on their worst day?
We're still going to show up. Absolutely, we're going to show up. Look at Florida. Governor DeSantis does a phenomenal job at responding to hurricanes.
Kevin Guthrie down there?
Yeah, and well, Kevin Guthrie especially. Kevin's he's a rock star. But I'm under the leadership of Governor DeSantis. They deal with it, and they don't just sit around and wait for the government to come in. They get in, get recovery, and go in and start moving. And then we're there to help and public assistance if need be. I think Florida could be a model on how to handle disasters. And if Florida can do it, then other states can do it too. And so we're looking to reform FEMA to be there, but not to rebuild every structure there, not to finalize it. We want the communities to take it. Not to mention, it's much cheaper for the communities and the states to take responsibility than for a federal contract.
It's more cost effective. Everything that FEMA bills is like twice as much.
I'll just use this for example. This is so ridiculous. I'll just use this for example. For FEMA to be able to pay for debris removal in some of these cases,
Yeah.
you have to pick it up out of the disaster area and move it to the street. Then we will show up and then we pick it up and we have to separate it because everything pays different. So you got to separate the different debris. You're in a disaster area, it's all together. And you got to put it in a dump truck and you got to haul it off, and each debris has a different reimbursement rate based on the weight of it. So they have to touch the product 3 times. Such a waste of time. Well, doesn't it make more sense? It's all waste at this point in a disaster area. Load it up once and haul it out the door. When the counties are doing it, when the states are doing it, they can do that. But because of some FEMA reimbursements they're waiting on, the bureaucracy gets in the way. That's just a simple example, but stuff like that is what drives people nuts. If you live there, all you want to do is just get in there and do it. But then you
get back to normal life.
Yeah, but then you take the state of California, where they had the disaster fires.
Yeah.
You see what bad government does? They can't even rebuild their houses. They can't even rebuild their houses. That's what bloated government bureaucracy does. You don't see that in Oklahoma. You don't see that in Florida. You don't see that in Kansas. You don't see that in Missouri. You don't see that in Arkansas. You don't see that in Tennessee. You don't see that in North Carolina. You see that in poorly ran blue states, and they're the ones that are screaming the most, wanting government to come in there and fix all the problems because it was their poor decisions that put them in this position to begin with. That's not FEMA's role.
Message loud and clear. I could do this all day. I know your staff is pulling you out, and Mr. Secretary, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really appreciate the conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you.